This video is going to be helpful for reviewing Lohfink, pages 60 to 66. The main theme here is religiosity versus revelation. So we see a lot about choosing revelation, choosing to be part of a loving community, but also trusting in God, especially when it doesn't seem quite obvious how God's going to fulfill his promises. So he starts in this chapter with a very rough story in the Bible. This is where Abraham is called to sacrifice his own son Isaac. So Lohfink sees this as a call or a statement that being the people of God is not about your bloodline. It's not about who your parents were. It's not about your race, your race or your ethnicity. It's not about your tribe, right? And we see that, how Abraham was willing to sacrifice his own son Isaac, right? So the bloodline was represented there with Isaac. What really makes people the people of God is the choice, right? As we'll get to down here in part C. So it's also then primarily about trusting God. Especially when you can't tell what God is up to. So if you think about this, go back to the story, God had promised Abraham that his descendants would be as great as the sands on the seashore or the stars in the sky. Then God didn't give him a son until his very old age. So that was a matter of trust right there. Abraham continued to trust in God. Then, after he has this son, now God is going to say, kill this son, sacrifice this son, like they used to sacrifice animals back in the ancient times. And lots of tribes used to sacrifice humans too. This isn't something that we see in the Israelites, and I'm not going to go over the whole thing where this was not an actual Israelite practice. Also, how the Bible condemns killing other humans. The story is definitely not about saying that we should kill other humans. And please go back and review that on the video in the modules. I'm not going to go over that now. But what he does show, what Lohfink is saying that's important here, is that Abraham trusts God, even if the son he had waited so long for to enable God's promise to come true. If God says, no, hold on, give me that back. Don't worry. I'll take care of it some other way. He's still willing to trust in God in that. So those are the two main things, right? It's being part of the people of God is not about blood, right? Abraham is not hooked on his bloodline. It's not about race, ethnicity, or nationality, any of that stuff. You're not a part of the people of God because your parents were a part of the people of God or your grandparents. It's not sanguine. So what is the deal with the people of God? Well, in a certain extent, not only is it not based on family, but you have to break out of this interest of the family. Why? What does it mean to be part of the people of God? Right? The people of God are open to all. It is an open, free, and loving community, right? It's not about who is the same family bloodline as me. It's not about who's the same race as me. It's not about any of that. It's about who wants to be part of the loving community, right? Who wants to treat other people, all other people, like dignified human people. Who wants to say my family isn't just my brothers and sisters and the other people in my bloodline or my tribe or my country. Who wants to say all human beings are my family? So to do that, you can't just focus. You have to break out of um, selfish family interests, right? Things like xenophobia. I don't want any foreigners coming here because they're going to take my kids' jobs, right? What's that, right? You're saying, oh no, only my kids matter. These people don't matter. Let's try spelling that correctly, right? So let's look at some of the Old Testament stories that support this. It's not, although we know that Jews are an ethnic group, being part of the people of God is not a bloodline. How do we see that in the Old Testament? Well, first we'll look at Abraham's call back when he was called Abram, right? The older version of the name in the Bible. He was called to leave his father's land, right? So right away, say it's not about being part of any tribe or bloodline. The other thing we see in the Old Testament a lot is that the younger son is preferred. The younger son ends up inheriting the blessings that's passed down from Abraham. So we see this time and time again. Isaac and Jacob. We see Joseph and his all his brothers. We see it time and time again. The younger son, David, is favored. This is kind of to be shown in juxtaposition to the traditional patriarchal system where the blessings of the bloodline are passed down to the eldest son. What else do we think about? The way that the firstborn son is dedicated, instead of automatically inheriting everything in the stories, all the Israelites would dedicate their firstborn to the temple, right? So again, the firstborn is a symbol for the bloodline, right? So who they are, the people of God, is not going to be about their bloodline. The people responsible for their bloodline, the firstborn son, are going to be dedicated to God in the temple. So they're saying what's more important than our family is our dedication and trust in God. So that their family doesn't stay our blood family, but all of God's children, who are all people. Very similar dedication of the Levites. The Levites are all dedicated to our Lord. They're a tribe with no land. So remember, the promise was to have this land, but one of the groups has no land. And that's the number one family interest, right? Prosperity and property. Well, the Levites don't even need that. Very interesting, right? What does he say? It's about choosing to be part of the people of God, choosing to be part of the community of loving persons, not just being born Jewish or being born into a Christian family or whatever group you want to claim has a special status because of their ethnicity. No, that's not what makes someone a person of God, even in the Old Testament. We see this with the story of where Caleb and Joshua are the only two Israelites who will go into the promised land the first time they get there. Promised land there, the PL. What happens to all the other Israelites who don't want to enter the promised land? They choose not to be the people of God at that point. And guess what? They live in the desert. They live in the desert for another 40 years. It's only their children then get a chance. God gives them another chance, of course. And what happens? Their children then choose to go in. So they choose to be people of God. They don't just go in the kingdom, into the promised land, because they are related to the Israelites who escaped slavery in Egypt. No, they got to choose to be those people themselves. Okay, I hope this helped. Study for the final.